These do bring back memories. This one is still warm. What is it? The recollections of a great lover? A catalog of conquests? We will soon find out. You wouldn't appreciate that, would you, Mr. Whatever your name is? Not the sort of conquest you could ever understand. Let's see, a touch of unhappy childhood, a dash of teenage rebellion, and last but not least, a podcast. Welcome into Additional Crew, the spoiler heavy movie review podcast that touches on movies both old and new. Today we bring you a film where a man struggles with memories of his past, which include a wife he cannot remember and a nightmarish world no one else has ever seemed to wake up from. This is, of course, Dark City by Alex Proyas. It's directed in 1998. Before we get into the movie and before we get much further, I'm going to introduce the two of us. So I'm Nick, one of the co-hosts, and with me is Andrew, not really co-host. What's going on, Andrew?
Hey Nick, hello crew. Things are going well. It's hot as hell still here in Sacramento, and pretty sure elsewhere. But there's been places where it's not been as hot. Like I went to San Francisco actually last week, and you wouldn't think it's summer over there because it's like 70 degrees. It's hella nice. It felt great, and
I'm kind of
again,
jealous of
it's
that,
kind
dude.
of what I experienced in New York. Like I haven't been to San Francisco in a long time, and a part of me was afraid to go for so long because of what happens when you go to San Francisco. You either have to worry about being bipped, and for those who don't know what being bipped means, that means that you get your windows broken in and you get everything jacked from your car. That shit sucks. That shit does happen. Uh, Luckily, it's never happened to me before, but I've seen people come back to their car and see their windows smashed, and that's like a terrible way to experience San Francisco. I hate that that happens, and that's kind of kept me from going back to San Francisco. And also the homeless epidemic that was ongoing. It's been so long since I've gone, but the last time I went, I would just see people shooting up, shitting on the ground. Well, this past time I went, it was not like that at all. I didn't see anyone get bipped. The homeless issue is still relevant, but I think what the city is doing differently is that they're trying to keep homeless people away from major touristy areas, at least during the day. And at night, it's like Gotham at night. It's free for all. But during the day, I think it's gone a lot better. So that was a positive from the last time we talked.
Sick, sick, sick. Yeah. I don't know. It's hot everywhere, man. It's pretty wild. It's not the same hot here. We just went up to North Bend, Washington, and shockingly, it's still pretty hot there. That's pretty far north. Uh, which shout out Twin Peaks. We got to see Snoqualmie Falls and head up to that area, which is where David Lynch shot a lot of the Twin Peaks series.
Oh, cool.
Always fun. Always fun. Um, Andrew, why don't you tell me about some music you've been listening to?
Yeah. No albums or artists have really stuck out to me, but songs from certain artists have. And I'll share some new artists I've been listening to. Like I've been really into Spanish music. One, just trying to sharpen up my Spanish, and two, just it's been like a summertime vibe for me. The Spanish music, just the way the reggaeton sounds. Like reggaeton for me is always just like hyper energy and like super like that bombastic feel of just like wanting to dance, and so that always reminds me of summer. So one artist I want to shout out is her name is BB Tricks. She has a whole ass album that just came out. I'm not a super fan of it. It's called 80s, but there's some good tracks on it. Super is good. Not a Pretty Girl, which is a good it's a good sample work from Claro's song Pretty Girl, I think it's called. Are you familiar with Claro? She's
I've
like a
heard of
Latin
them, but I
pop
don't know their music.
artist that's kind of blown up since her from that song Pretty Girl. Like she's had blow up since 2018. Her last album did really good, got really popular. Let me see the name of her last album that she dropped. Um, Charm, which had one of my favorite songs from that year, Juna, great song. But BB Tricks is a Spanish artist from, I believe, Barcelona, Spain. Yeah, Um, People have referred to as like the Ice Spice of Spanish, of her Spanish uh, lane or whatever you want to call it. Like just the way that she like holds herself in the media and like how the way she kind of like incorporates drill style music in her sound. And I don't know a lot about her. I don't know a lot about her personal life. I'm strictly talking about her music. And from what I've been hearing, it's been just kind of like a vibe for me. Like honestly, it's not like game changing. It's not like go run out and this is the next big thing. But like it's just fun. And she had a like I didn't even know realize this till like after the fact that she had a collaboration with Charlie XCX on her remix album, uh, Brat, but it's completely different, but it's still Brat uh, for the song Club Classics, which is honestly one of my favorite songs from that album. It's just a banger of a track. She's on that, but that's all I have to say about BB Tricks. Go check her out if you're interested in like I don't know Spanish reggaeton style pop rap. I don't know. It's very unique. I will say that. And the next person I wanted to talk about only has literally one song or like maybe two songs. Their Apple um, profile page or Spotify profile page, whatever you listen to them on, is very limited on the number of songs. So hopefully this artist blows up because I want them to blow up. I think they're amazing. Their
Okay.
sound sounds
Okay.
super fresh, but at the same time reminiscent of early 2000s reggaeton. And like this one song I would hear often, it's called the Ketchup Song. If you know, you know. I'm not gonna try to explain that song, but it just
Can you
gives
can you
me that
can you
type of
sing a verse from it?
no.
I'm kidding. I'm messing with you. Keep going. Keep going.
It would be too difficult. But it has that like type of energy that, but it also has that reggaeton energy that like the doom, the doom, 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 the doom, 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 like that style of like low drums and just like that consistent drum beat. They're a from what Google's telling me, they're a reggaeton duo from Mexico, and they have one song that I've just been obsessed over. It's called Sekunina. I don't know, Sekunena. However you want to pronounce it. That song is fucking amazing. I love the energy in that song. It fucking bounces. It's like a wake me up song, a hype me up song. It is just so fun to listen to. And
Okay.
that's all I
Okay.
really have to say about that.
No, worth checking out. Fun to listen to. Sounds like the appropriate mood to look for in music right now.
And yeah, it's just a very summer esque type energy that I want moving forward with my music listening experience. I also want to find a dream pop album or song that like ends my night because I have things that like hype me up during the summer, but I want something that kind of like feels ethereal and just kind of like fresh and new. Because I've heard the Cocktail Twins, Beach House, um, all these like dream pop and like the normal names you would hear thrown around. So I want a fresh new artist to gravitate towards in the coming weeks or before summer ends. That's my goal.
That's fair. I don't have anything like uplifting for you. I listened to the new Greet Death album. I actually forgot about this, and
What is it?
it's Greet Death. They're considered like alt country shoegaze, but I don't hear the alt country personally. I don't really understand where that genre title comes into play. There's like a steel guitar in one song, and they're like, "That's it, alt
That's it.
country."
We
Uh,
got we labeled them.
yeah, yeah, and shoegaze is. I'm finding shoegaze to be such a wildly deep genre that I don't know what the hell it means anymore. It's
Yeah,
just like,
genres
oh,
don't even make sense anymore. Honestly, like they help you, they help direct you in in the artist's general direction, but I don't necessarily think that that's their sound. But I think it
mhm.
just helps open up the avenue.
Well, they're
essentially.
like, do you like fuzz and phasers on your guitar? Then listen to this. It's shoegaze now.
Yeah,
Which okay, you know, but Greet Death, that was actually a pretty good album, but it's not. It is not uplifting. It's not uplifting at all. Um, they have
yeah, it sounds kind of like
they
about
said this new album was going to be uplifting, and then the lyrics were just incredibly dark. Um, but you know,
it.
that's life. Uh, really good sound, just interesting. But yeah, I don't know. You know me and uplifting music. These are we like ships in the night we pass each other. um, yeah. Well, no, thanks for the Rex. Do you have any other artists you want to talk about, or is that the two?
Just those two, yeah. I don't have much else other than those two who have been kind of like who's kind of new. And like the last thing I would say is this is not a new artist. This is an artist that everybody knows. But I actually got around to listening to Oasis for the first time. Like the Good Morning. Oh, what's the story? Morning Glory. Like I finally listened to that album, and there's good songs on it. Don't get me wrong. Uh, I don't know. I feel like you had to be there to understand why the hype was so big for Oasis because I listen and enjoy more Blur songs and like
Dude,
Damon.
Blur should have won. Blur should have won that battle. I don't know what happened. Why were the Gallagher's so important and Damon Albarn was just thrown to the side for so long?
I feel like Damon Albarn got thrown like to the side is because they always saw him as like a, a rich kid, and the Oasis are like this down to earth like middle class looking band. Like their parents didn't help them type energy.
And I could be wrong about this because I don't know the full history off the top of my head. But what I remember is that Britain immediately wanted Oasis to be the next Beatles. So they gave him a gigantic grant to make music. And it was just, in my opinion, it's so boring. Like there are good songs that are catchy, but man, you listen to a full album and it's like, holy cow, that was a slog.
Yeah, it does. Like it is not an album
Sorry.
I
Yeah.
want to listen to on repeat. There was again songs I really enjoy, like obviously the Wonderwall and Champagne Supernova are like instant classics, but does that make them better than Blur for me? No. I like way more Blur stuff. I like way more Damon Albarn stuff, and yeah, you can definitely hear the influence of the Beatles on this album. It's kind of hard to not hear certain John Lennon esque type voice
Mm-hmm.
in some of these songs,
Mm-hmm.
and so that can get kind of boring over time, and it just does not do it for me. I rather just go around and listen to the Beatles instead.
Which is fair. I mean, like they do have some really catchy hooks during the choruses. Don't get me wrong, but again, it's just like the rest of it is so uninteresting to me, and it's kind of unfortunate. Like their singles are still the standout tracks for me, which
For
is
sure.
with a band like that has this many songs, especially because their albums are short little albums. You would want something else to stand out, and I can't even remember the names of the other songs like at all. And I've tried this multiple times because I've always been heavy on the Blur side, and I love to check myself and try to make sure that I'm not just like making shit up, you know?
Yeah, and for people to write out Blur like they're like some rich, pompous kids, like sure they could be rich and pompous and they got everything handed to them, but like if the music's still good, why does it fucking matter?
I would
Sometimes.
take any song on the album 13 over any song Oasis has ever made.
Oh yeah, I can listen 13 front to back and enjoy way more of an experience than I did with What's the Story Morning Glory. Like hands down, it has so much raw emotions. It has fast rock esque songs and like very low, like ethereal sounding. Like there's so much variety on 13.
Hmm.
Where What's the Story Morning Glory just sounds like a rock album,
Right.
which is
Exactly.
really,
Exactly. That's the thing. Like you can have Bugman on the same album as No Distance Left to Run, like
yeah.
where Bugman's like a freak out and then No Distance Left to Run is this bluesy, like really like heartfelt breakup song. It's just, I almost get, goose, what is it called? Goose flesh. That doesn't feel right, but that's what I'm gonna call
Goosebumps.
it. Yeah, goosebumps. Thank you. Just talking
Flesh
about
bump.
noses and stuff to run. I know I said it and I'm like, that's my grandma called it goose flesh. And that doesn't feel right to say though when I
That
say it
does
out
not
loud.
sound good to say. Goose
It
flesh.
just doesn't sound good. Um, yeah, okay, that's fair. That's fair. I've been listening a lot to the presidents of the United States of America. That's
So they're the one with peaches, huh?
they're the one with peaches, man. And that whole album is just from the front to back, fun as all hell.
Fun.
So
Maybe I
fun.
should check that out because it does sound like that's a band that I would hear thrown around in the '90s a lot, like early 2000s for that song particularly. But I never really gone around to check out the full, you know, album.
Yeah, yeah. The album is it stays fun the whole
It's
way
kind of
through.
like Possum Kingdom, or is that the band?
The Sex and Candy band.
No, no, that's Marcy's Playground.
Okay. Possum Kingdom, wasn't that the name of
They're the
their
one
album, or
with
am I crazy?
Toadies.
Toadies. I will say this: the presidents of the United States of America. Shout out Blake from high school. Me and Blake went to go see them live when we were in high school, and it was one of the most fun shows I've ever been to. And the album shows why. Just it's a fun album, and like you know,
I gotta
listen
check
to
it
it.
out. I'm
I
gonna.
that was my feel good album. I like threw that on because I'm like I need some good vibes, and this is
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
some funny silly shit. Both of my kids love like half the songs on the album, so they'll sing it with me.
Hell yeah, dude. I'm gonna add this. I'm gonna listen to this tomorrow. So yeah. Even though they have a song called "Fuck California," which is not cool.
Well, yeah, but that's not on the album. That's just like outtakes. So
Oh,
if
okay.
you want to know, they didn't actually release that song. It was the record label that released it later. How are you gonna figure that out? It
These
doesn't
sons
make
of
any sense on
bitches.
Spotify nowadays.
All right,
One
cool,
thing I'll rant about Spotify for a quick second. If you're gonna add the extra tracks to the album, at least like make it clear that they're extra tracks.
dude. I hate that. Fucking Apple, Spotify, like they'll do these special edition albums, and now I have to listen. Like, if I just want to throw on the album on a loop, I can't because now I got to make a new playlist just for this album because now I got to delete all these other songs I don't want.
100%. So I have this like gigantic playlist that's my whole entire vinyl collection, right? And I add every album I get to it. And this is like my stupid moral ethical playlist where I'm like, I pay these artists so I can listen to this all the time. But I hate having all these expanded bonus tracks because they just screw up the actual pacing of the album so much.
Yeah,
There's a reason they were cut, and like I'm happy that they exist out there in the internet somewhere. So if people want to listen to them, they can. Just separate them. Like make it two different albums. Like make it this album and then this album bonus tracks.
exactly. Just do that. Like they used to do that. Now they just make it the one album. Like because you guys are saving space somehow on their web on their artist page. Like don't.
I'm not here for that. Yeah, it's like please be. Anyways, rant over.
Yeah.
Switch it up, Spotify. God damn it. We don't need "Fuck California" as a Presidents of the United States song to make it seem like it's on that album. Uh, a little bit of trivia is that the lead singer, Presidents of the United States of America, ended up making songs for PBS Kids because he wanted to do something positive.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, I didn't know
hmm
that.
Um. Okay, before we go any further, I just want to give a quick like little monologue about the just everything. So
State of the world.
yeah. Just I want to just mention that I appreciate anyone listening to this and still seeking out movie reviews during all the tumultuous bullshit that comes up daily right now. Speaking from an American centric view, it feels pretty easy to get buried in the bad. Um, but I strive to keep this going and talking about music, movies, books, sometimes games, because I believe that these shared like cultural experiences allow us to feel more empathy and create something together. Because art is made by people, but it's then remade by the viewers and the watchers and the listeners. It's kind of like, in my opinion, it's a beautiful process that can save our shared identity and allow ideas to exist in a world that's moving way too quickly. So I think that allowing yourself to listen and watch to something should be lauded. That it's something that you should continue to do to continue to gain and experience just different viewpoints, regardless of what they are. Because if you are so stuck in the news right now or in the current events right now, which is very easy to understand, but if you are so stuck in them, you're going to miss out on a whole entire world of experiences.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, so that's just a side note because I always think, and I see this happening with our listener counts, is that when some big news drops, that's all that's talked about. And I understand that so much. I just think people need to keep watching movies, keep listening to music, keep listening to reading books because that's how you expand your mind and how you get past all this. Anyway, Andrew, hit me with overcompensating.
Oh yeah, I've been watching a show called Overcompensating. I rushed through this series because I was actually one, I was kind of hungover, so I was nursing a hangover. But two, this was just like a comfort show. When I started watching it over time, I was like, oh, this is like really easy to watch. It's like 30 minutes. It's on Amazon Prime. It's a TV comedy drama series that's created by Benito Skinner. For those unfamiliar with him, he started his career doing YouTube, and that's where I kind of started watching his stuff because my friend and I would uh, have inside jokes of the content he was putting out, mainly on like his characters that he developed for star signs. So he had this series called Dating a Specific Star Sign, Dating a Cancer, Dating a Taurus, Dating a Libra, and just has like all these different characters he can kind of develop around a generic uh, star sign. Because we all, some may believe in astrology, some may not, but what we can all agree is that maybe there are parts that shine light in those astrology. Like we might not check all the boxes of a Libra or a Sagittarius, but there are some things that really stand out about our star signs, and we can kind of uh, relate. So he created those characters, and that's where I got an idea of who Benito Skinner was and how his humor is. He's very funny. Um, it may get you may need some getting used to uh, when you watch this show because even I found some of the characters on this show kind of annoying. But by the end, I was like, oh, she's hilarious. She's like they made her that annoying to be that character and to like over exaggerate that annoyingness because over time it just became funny how over annoying she was, like oh how over the top she was and like her personality and such. And so give it some time. This show might not be for everybody, but if you take the time to actually watch it and just like let these characters develop, you might actually find some relatability to something or at least just have a laugh. Like it is generally a funny show. Like I found myself uh, actually chuckling and laughing out loud a couple times. There wasn't like I didn't feel like I was ever forcing myself to laugh, and it's very just like there is some like I don't know, there is some PC ness, but I think they don't take themselves too serious with the PC ness, and that's what I like. They know how to have fun and they know where it fits and where it doesn't,
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
to get a general premise of the show, it revolves around a semi. It's loosely based off Benito Skinner, the main character, uh, life story of him being closeted and him finding his identity in this college experience and what it's like to go through life, uh, not understanding how you fit in the world when you don't really understand your sexual orientation and you're trying to fit in these groups and just trying to get an understanding of the world and how you're going to be perceived and accepted. And that's kind of like the general senses of the name, overcompensating. You're like doing too much when you, all you sometimes need to be is you're generally yourself. And if people are going to either take to it or not take to it, but at the end of the day, it's those who you learn to like actually live with and bond with and who accept you are the ones you're going to want to be with anyways. Don't try to pretend to be somebody to fit in where you think the world thinks you should fit in. And so there are some like really good like premises and like uh, morality and like things to take out of the show. But at the end of the day, it is a fun show. I'm not trying to make this some like moral high ground type show. it is at the end of the day a comedy show. So just take it at that, and it's just yeah,
How
I
does it
burned
how would
through.
you, like, rate it up against, like, some of the more popular, like, sitcom-based comedies, like, the 2000s, like, let's say I don't know, I'm trying to think of one that sounds similar. I'm just thinking of, like, groups of friends
So for
sitcoms, like
me, what I can relate this to is like an adult version of Degrassi, and I only say that because it revolves around a school, and
mhm.
Degrassi was very much high school based, and so they dealt with a lot of like high school stuff. And while I was in high school, it felt like a very good show. Like I was in high school when they were in high school, and so it felt very relatable. And I'm not in college anymore, sort of, but I'm not in this type of college environment, and so I don't have that sense of connection with that. But what I do have a connection is like there is some relatability to what's going on and like the commentary and like seeing some like just funny things on screen. And so I can't, again, I think Degrassi is the closest thing, but Degrassi is not supposed to be funny. Degrassi,
Have you watched, like, Community? Like, is it like
oh
that, or is
yeah,
it less, like,
Community. I think
irreverent, or
yeah. I might be alone in this. I did not find Community that fun. I try watching it the first
N
few seasons, and I just could not get connected to the characters. They just did not.
yeah, you're not alone, trust.
Yeah, I just didn't find like there. Don't get me wrong, there were funny moments, but there wasn't enough. The characters weren't enough for me to be interested enough to keep watching. And it was kind of annoying. It was just, I get it. It's a comedy show, so it was meant to be over the top. But sometimes I like things that are like level grounded, like still
I
believable.
I feel like you need your characters to seem more like real humans.
Yeah, and that's what it didn't like. It almost felt like too over the top. Like there's no way a community college is like this. Where I like at
Mhm.
least here, this feels in some ways believable. Like there is a gag. I feel like that they don't like say out loud, but like it seems like everybody on campus is driving a golf cart. And first I was like, why do they keep doing that? But I think after a while, it just became a running joke that they never talked about. But it's always just funny to see like they're able to drive in this, you know, golf cart campus, uh, this campus cart around, and nobody seems to care. Like they're just always there's always one available, and like nobody seems
Yeah.
to pay mind to it. But
Like, it's just a thing.
I don't know. It's but that was a good comparison. Community is a good comparison
That
too.
well, that's what it sounded like. I haven't watched Overcompensating, but that's the only other one I can think that takes place at a college like that. But Community is like it's this weird mixture of like The Office and
Yeah,
it wants to be maybe like The Office meets It's Always Sunny, but without the raunchiness because the characters all have like their very specific quirks. It didn't really work for me either, so I'm not gonna be the best Community explainer here. I've watched quite a few episodes hoping that it would eventually click even. Didn't. I don't know.
yeah, I'm on the same boat with you. Like it just never hit that moment. Like, oh, this is hilarious. Like I got to keep watching. No, with
Yeah,
this show, I watched it and like I finished it in a weekend. It was for me. It was fun.
that's good. Okay, so check it out. Check it out. Do you have anything else before we start this film review? Okay, so this podcast we are talking about Dark City from 1998. It's directed by Alex Proyas. Alex Proyas, of course, much more famous for The Crow. But this movie is actually pretty well known too. As a matter of fact, it was Roger Ebert's number one film of 1998.
Really?
So
No, damn, that's
yeah, number one, not just on his top 10 list or whatever. This was number one. He said it was a movie that gave him life again.
really.
He
Oh,
loved this
damn.
film.
Damn. All right.
So this movie, yeah, it was directed by Alex Proyas. So he's also done The Crow, as I just said. He had also done iRobot, Knowing. I'm thinking like there's a few other movies he did, like Gods of Egypt, which who cares? Crappy movie. Sorry if you like Gods of Egypt. I'm gonna just dump on it real quick. Um, but then you also so you have a pretty star-studded cast, I would say, except for the main actor. But you've got Jennifer Connelly, you've got Kiefer Sutherland, and then you've got Rufus Sewell. Rufus Sewell, of course, is the main star in this, and you've probably seen him in other places. He was recently in the M Night Shyamalan movie Old. He was in A Knight's Tale, probably his most famous role. Um, but not an overly well known actor. And it's one thing I'll say is that that was apparently done on purpose, just because they wanted to choose a main actor that people didn't have preconceived notions about, so they didn't know anything about him and they weren't assuming whether or not he was good or bad.
Hmm.
Which makes sense. That's an interesting strategy at the very least. Um, and I do want to point out that I think me and Andrew watched two different versions of this movie,
We
which
did.
I'm going to bet they're pretty similar, but there is one large difference. So Andrew watched the theatrical version, and I watched the director's cut. Now, the theatrical version has a voiceover that I'd love you to talk about real quick, Andrew, if you could.
Oh yeah, it just basically goes and tells the whole premise of the film of what John Murdoch is all about, which is he is the chosen one essentially in fighting against the tuners. What are they called?
There's called the Strangers, from
Oh, the
my understanding.
strangers. Yeah, and he's basically got this tuning power that he basically sends mind waves from his brain and is able to combat and fight against the sleep paralysis that they put. But all this like is being said by Kiefer Sutherland. Like he's basically saying like he is the one. Like he's gonna bring us home and bring humanity back to life from these strangers. And then
So
it
in
goes to the film of him like figuring things out and like slowly getting his memories recollected.
Which is it's and that's definitely an interesting take, because the director's cut completely omits that. It just starts up in the movie. You're met with the goldfish and the bathtub, and it's like, what
That's where
is
it
going
started.
on? Hmm.
Yeah, because like mine like they're I think from what I can remember is like they're like flowing through the city as Kiefer Sutherland is talking about the his his procedure on John.
And I guess the director's cut does show the city, but it almost seems like it's just an introduction sequence, like a set building thing, because they don't talk at all. It's just the city and the music playing. Um, and then you get immediately to the bathtub, and you have no idea what's going on. So, like, on one hand, you're watching a story that's already been kind of told to you and how it happens. On the other hand, I went into this one pretty blank. I wanted to see this movie and I knew it had come out, and so I was like, okay, we're gonna watch this film. I didn't look it up at all, so I was so confused in the beginning, and not necessarily in a bad way, in like a mystery way. I was like, what is going on? What is all of this? This is You got a really cool set that looks like a Terry Gilliam set, which we just watched.
Yeah,
It's
and the Wikipedia page they often reference that this feels very like Brazil esque.
it and 100%. I can totally see that. And the other movie, it feels a lot like it actually came out beforehand, because to me, it felt a lot like The Matrix. I saw those Matrix comparisons so much during this film. If we talk about like the use of like telephone booths, and how in the beginning Kiefer Sutherland's character calls Rufus Sewell's character, and he's like, "They're coming to get you. You got to run." You know,
Yeah,
which a good piece of trivia also for this is that this film, they sold the set to the Wachowski brothers to make The Matrix. And the Wachowski brothers aren't the Wachowski brothers anymore. I'm not gonna try to figure out what. Anyway, the Wachowskis.
the
They
Wachowskis.
they sold the set to the Wachowskis, and they made the Matrix on the set. So if you like notice areas where you're like, wow, I've seen that before. Like the rooftop scene is the same rooftop that they use in the Matrix.
That Neo jumped off of or Trinity jumped off of.
The Trinity jumped off of, exactly. Um, and once I had like seen that, I was like, oh man, it makes so much sense. I kept getting so many vibes. I was like, this feels like the Matrix is happening, just with a different kind of version of the one.
Yeah, I mean, it did. I I think if I didn't read the Wikipedia beforehand, I wouldn't have gone to that conclusion. But you can see the similarities if you read that. Like it's hard to ignore some of the things that you would see on set of this movie and see on set of The Matrix, because again, they basically sold off their sets.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
you know, the world fits like Dark City uh, ambiance and like its feel fits for The Matrix. It's like hard to not see parallels.
Yeah, 100%. So I have a question for you. So the movie, like, for me, is totally felt like a neo-noir mystery through the first 2 acts up until act 3. Once you know the mystery, does it still feel that way?
No, it feels like a mouse and cat game.
Okay. Okay. Because I can see that totally. Because we don't even know who these the strangers are watching this movie. You have no idea who they are, why they're chasing him. They just seem like this absolute evil entity that should be avoided at all costs. We have no idea why people are changing places. And then finally they show them all fall asleep. And like I had kind of guessed, I was like, oh, well, they're like weird Nosferatu vampires or aliens or something, you know. And then of course, spoiler alert, they turns out they are kind of aliens, maybe.
Yeah, and they like they're to study and understand humans and their free will and their
Hmm.
choices, and if their memories are what makes them decide certain things based off what they can remember. Like it is a very like conceptually, this movie is very like cool and like it's like makes you think,
Hmm.
but the writing kind of slowed me down from getting to this like feeling of like this movie is fantastic. Like the writing for me was kind of like I was getting bored listening to what was happening on screen. Like
I think for me, I can point out a few like pretty immediate like pressure points, and one of them kind of shocked me. I really disliked the acting choices that Kiefer Sutherland made in this
thank
film.
you. Yes, I was gonna mention that.
I didn't have a ton of issues with almost anyone else, but Kiefer Sutherland and the way he spoke. You heard it in the intro. I was doing the intonated voice thing where I was going slow. My cadence was really like particular, and that's because Kiefer Sutherland does this every time he talks. And I get that it makes a character, but it's distracting. It was just
It,
distracting. I couldn't pay attention to what he was saying anymore. I was just listening to the way he was saying it.
exactly. He would always pause between words because he just felt like this character just needed to have like this kick about him.
Right? Like, why does this guy need a tick like this? I was thinking I'm watching Malcolm in the Middle, you know what I mean? And it's the friend coming over and he's talking and he's
Yeah,
got the
and
breath
like
between every word.
there is for that it makes sense because it's kind of like a comedy base. This is not. This is there was almost no comedy in this. Like,
Not funny.
are you doing this because you think the character needed this? Like, was this like? I don't think he needed this. I think if Sutherland just talked like a witty scientist, I would have been on board. Like, yes, please, like just talk
Like
normal.
like give yourself a dumb Russian accent that doesn't make sense in this, right? Or something like that. And we're in. But the cadence was so bad that I couldn't it distracted me. Every scene that Kiefer Sutherland had a long monologue or even a part of a long dialogue, I was distracted every single time. I'm like, this movie had made Kiefer Sutherland look so very uncool, and then he chose the worst cadence. This might be one of my least favorite versions of Kiefer Sutherland that I've ever seen.
And this is not hating on people who talk like this. If you legitimately talk like this, we're not talking about you at all.
No,
Because
no.
that's just who you are. We're not there to judge you to make fun of you. But when
There's given no reason.
yeah, when there's almost no reason for a character to talk like this, just because you think the character deserves to talk like this, no, don't do that.
It's
It's,
just
it's distracting.
that's the issue for me is they made it where it's set in the movie just feels distracting on each end. It's not funny, it's not suspenseful, it doesn't really add to the mystique. It just kind of takes away from the actual dialogue that he's giving. And you know, maybe they could have done that in a better way to where like they still included the voice, but they made it make more sense. I don't know. I can't really like figure out a way to do that exactly, but I just didn't. But it's really easy for me to pick up on this because for me, the mystery was pretty. real throughout. I was interested in kind of this feeling of this movie because I think a lot of this movie for me was pretty vibe based. Like it was heavy on the darkness and the special effects and the way everything looked.
Yeah, the I wrote that down too. Like the special effects were very cool for the time. Like when they were doing the whole like transformation of like
Mm-hmm.
where they lived and creating new worlds and new housing. The dining table extending out, the walls like changing entirely. Like that's pretty. That looked pretty advanced for late 90s.
It was really cool. I really love that dining table scene in particular that you spoke of. Like that was rad.
Like
That was
it almost looks dated, but does not. Like it's
mhm.
very fitting for the 90s, from what
Yeah.
I.
Like I was more. I think for me the tuning looked a little bit dated, but
The
okay,
tuning
you
bit,
know.
I hated that. I hated the boom, 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 like that shit looks stupid.
Yeah, yeah.
The faces they were making while doing
Man,
it looks
can,
dumb. And like
can you imagine that footage without the tuning? It'd be so funny. I would
exactly
love to see
like
that.
take away the tuning. Look how dumb you look right now. Like don't do this. You're gonna make your character look dumb.
Yeah, there's a couple parts about that where I'm like, okay, this feels very low budget, which is really out of place because the rest of this movie feels very well made, like really created meticulously, and then the tuning feels like, oh shit, I don't know what this is gonna look like. Just throw something in there, throw something in there. It's got to be like sonar waves, and then they heads up pop. The jellyfish coming out of the brains, I'm split on it. Because on one hand, and they're not really jellyfish, I just don't know what to call them. On one hand, it looked goofy, and on the other hand, it was kind of like that cool sort of goofy where I'm into it a little bit, almost like the bad CGI movies of the early '90s, you know, like Lawnmower Man, where I'm like, well, that looks like garbage, but it's very stylized garbage,
Are we
you
talking
know,
about
like
the strangers when their heads would pop
yeah,
over?
exactly.
Yeah, the part where he's like on a billboard, I think, and one of
Mm-hmm.
them falls through the hole, and the
Cracks
strangers
his
are
head
so
open.
stupid and that they don't even realize that the hole behind them is cracking, and so they fall through the hole. I hate like the strangers were so dumb. Like you guys have these special powers, and you guys are trying to. What were they trying to do with John? Were they just trying to like take him
They
back? They were trying to take him
so
back, right?
yeah, because he was adapting and gaining their powers. They thought his memories or his spirit or whatever would help them to regain individuality. Because I think that was their issue is that these guys were advanced, but they didn't have any individuality anymore. So their species, like genetic makeup, was falling apart.
Oh, that's crazy.
It was interesting. There's a lot of really like kind of interesting concepts in this. I don't think that it ever kind of went far enough in certain concepts, and that might be my only issues because this is an interesting idea, but then it kind of devolves into just a reason to have us versus them attitude
Yeah,
instead of like a real actual like idea of like, well, what is individuality and how does it come apart? So like we get that kind of exploring of, is it your memories and your experience that makes you who you are, and if we remove those every single day and change it around, you still maintain who you are, and that's kind of the premise of it all. But we don't ever see like kind of the penultimate like, is it, because all you get is Rufus Sewell, and I swear I'll remember his name, John Murdoch. All you get is John going, well, you thought it was in here, pointing at his brain. He's like, but it's actually somewhere else, and that's all you get. That's the answer you get. That's the explanation you get. Like that's not. Did you introduce a high science concept, a high sci-fi concept? You gotta follow through on that, Alex. Come on, man.
yeah. He just completely like let's simplify that. Let's make it so that it's not abstract and too heady for people to believe. And,
Hmm.
sometimes it works, and maybe it was too. You don't want to get too heady for the 90s, but the Matrix got heady, and look where it got them. Like they broke fucking pillars.
Yeah, and I think I really like. I did actually. So I enjoyed seeing this movie because it came out the year before The Matrix. I'm just thinking like, wow, honestly, the high sci-fi concepts that these guys were pumping out in these late '90s, I
I
want to
think,
see more of these high sci-fi concepts.
and you know what? I kind of attribute this to Y2K. People
Because
were excited for the future. People were excited to see where the next millennium was going to take them. And so
hmm
you get these type of like game changing films are like want to explore where the world's gonna go. Where now we're in the world that they envisioned, and it doesn't feel like we're living up to their expectations now. Like we have AI generating bullshit. We have AI slop generating all this awful media that we're just left to like either enjoy or hate.
Well, okay, and let me follow down this path way too far for this podcast. Are we slowly becoming the strangers by letting AI create everything for us? We're just removing all of the individuality from everything. So now we are becoming the strangers, and in 20 years, no one will have any hair. Is that what happens?
Maybe this is
Uh,
what Alex was trying to allude to, what he was
do,
trying to save us from, but we weren't listening. We weren't watching intently. We were just kind of seeing the surface level of Dark City.
secretly, what they should have realized is what makes the person is the lack of internet. Apparently, they're just like everyone. Once you get the internet, you all become the same person. Um,
Well, you're
which
easy. You're much easier to find the person who's much like you
that yeah, that's true.
because you get these forums. You get there's easier ways to connect, but we've found ourselves way more disconnected, and that's in that way too as well.
Well, okay, imagine this, all right? And this is silly thought experiment, so bear with me for a second. If you were to post someone on TikTok who carried an accordion with them everywhere, do you think that would gain traction, or do people think would, or do you think people would assume that they're like cringe funny? Because
Yeah.
William Hurt's character in this apparently carries his accordion everywhere with him, and he's a very serious man.
Who is that?
Inspector Frank Bumstead.
Is that the guy who was looking for John Murdoch because he believed he was the reason he was killing people? He was like he
He
killed.
was the he was the cop guy who was in charge of the investigation into the murders. Yeah,
I'm surprised the what's his name the strangers weren't able to just like what's tap into that guy's brain because he kind of foiled the strangers' uh, progress in getting what's his face because they're in control. It feels like they're this is the strangers' world
yeah.
and everyone else is just living in it until John comes along. Well, I
And
feel like
John's brain
Kiefer
breaks it a little bit.
Sutherland's character helped uh, not create, but like
He helped
stop.
guide John in some
Yeah,
ways. I don't know that he helped create him, but once he kind of realized what was going on, he helped kind of push it. Yeah, I wondered about this too. I thought it might be kind of a plot hole or like maybe a loss of logic here because the inspector, he knows all of this. He's following all of it. He knows where John is at all times, and this is Rufus Sewell's character again. And my question is, why wouldn't the strangers just reset his memories?
exactly. Why one couldn't they just retract his memory and make him a hot dog vendor
Hmm.
or
Yeah,
something?
yeah. Like, okay, now we have all this knowledge that you have already on this guy, but you're not involved anymore. You're gone. You're out. You're done.
Yeah,
Like,
it
legitimately.
seems like a plot point that they just ignored. They just wanted to like we got to push this. Hopefully, nobody looks too deep into this whole little plot of the inspector because
And there were,
we got about.
yeah, there were a couple things like that. Like Jennifer Connelly as the wife was almost so inconsequential, really. Besides, like leading people to John Murdoch's, like the wife, where even he's like, I actually don't know if you were my wife or if that's just a memory they implanted. You could have been someone completely different the day before, and tomorrow you could be someone completely different. So why do I even care? But I love you. It's just like one of these characters that they introduce as a plot point to kind of garner emotions or to insert a certain storyline, but it doesn't feel like they really wanted to follow through on this particular idea.
Yeah, there was almost no romantic connection I felt between these two characters. Like there was, and even towards the end where it's supposed to be like this happy ending, like oh we're meeting each other so serendipitously in this little like on this pier and like I forgot what they even talked about, but something about the ocean or how beautiful things
How
were.
beautiful the sunrise was, or something like that.
Yeah, but like even then, I just felt like, huh, that's a way to end the movie. But I didn't feel like emotionally connected when they ended up together.
Well, it was like that Meet Me in Montauk scene from the end of Eternal Sunshine, right? Or at least where she still loses her mind but ends up in the place anyways, and meets with her former lover because her identity had been changed. But it didn't earn that. Like in my opinion, it didn't earn that because
No, we
the
didn't spend
romantic.
enough time with Jennifer Connelly. Like we, I feel like I know that she's a singer more than anything else.
Yeah, yeah, and like they didn't reset her memory because they just need someone to sing. Maybe everyone else really stunk at singing. I mean, that's totally possible. Um, but they could have reset her memory as far as relationship goes. I mean, John was completely correct about that. And so is the implanted. I guess maybe this is. I'm talking through it because I'm going to give him maybe a little bit of leeway here, and I'm going to say, what if the point that I'm missing is that the love that John feels for Emma is the thing that can't be emulated, and even though he doesn't have these memories, he'll continue to feel the love. I'm making a pretty large jump here without evidence.
Yeah, maybe is love what we perceive as memories built upon each other, or is it the chemicals that our brains tell us to when we see somebody?
Hmm. And so I wonder maybe that's like the point that I'm missing with that relationship. If so, they didn't explain that or make it known at all that we were getting in that area. But I'm giving him so much leeway right now that Alex could build a bridge off the amount of leeway I'm giving him.
One thing I wonder is, are people giving birth in this society, or who's making life?
That's an interesting question. How long have they been out there?
Yeah, how long have the strangers been the strangers on what I perceive as planet Earth? Because this movie made me believe that that Alex thinks the Earth is flat.
Yeah.
Because the
Hmm.
Earth looked flat at one point, right? Like the water just kind of like hung off from the side.
Well, yeah, because they're floating through space on like some weird spaceship, so it's like they've been abducted from Earth, or they're a separate it's not really explained how they got there, but the strangers have taken them out into a isolated environment on some spaceship of some sort, and the
So
water only exists because of John creating the water with his
with his
newfound tuning
mind,
powers. Yeah.
with his tuning mind.
Yeah, yeah. I think they like spill out of the city or something. That part's not overly clear exactly on where the water comes from, even though they show them spilling out of pipes. But so the Earth is flat, and it's only the city. There is nothing else in this but the city. So that's why people can't remember how to get out of it because there is no way to get out of it. There's no out of it that
Yeah.
exists. When he's trying
So
to go
did
to the
they just take
beach,
a small portion of the world and take it on their spaceship?
right, right, and that's a good question. Because how did they do it otherwise? I guess the mind powers are how it's all created. Like they can just create the city. Whatever that weird globe that spins is, some psychic powered engine.
And then another thing is a question is, where would be the worst time to get like pause? Like it sucks that like people just fall out, or like when everyone just goes into sleep paralysis, whatever they're doing, they're just like they're stuck doing that thing.
Yeah, and I wonder why the society wouldn't be a little confused at the traffic jams at midnight. Because that's too many people out at midnight. Maybe I don't know, but like they're showing midnight and there's full on traffic jams. Everyone's out. Diners are all full. Everything is full. And
Yeah,
I
this
get it that like in this movie there's no daytime, so people are doing things at night because the days are way shorter or whatever. But how does no one in society recognize that it's weird that there's this many people out at midnight every day?
yeah, there's a lot of questions about in this movie that don't get answered, but these are just thoughts that we sometimes have when watching these type of films.
And you could do the cop out answer of just like, well, yeah, they just placed the memory and they said, yeah, that didn't happen. And then you go home and you're like, oh, that was weird. It's a good cop out because I mean, they explain that they're editing memories. So, um, but it was it's one of these like the idea is really cool, but there are certain things I would need to follow through for. I do find that maybe the follow through was hard because we wanted to keep this movie under 2 hours, and if you start trying to explain any one of these things,
Yeah,
even just a little bit, you're adding 10 minutes. Because if you want to give an explanation, you're going to have to give an explanation. You're not going to be able to just write it off as like, this is my miracle reason. Ignore it now forever. Unless you do it in the plot, which is what he did a lot. Um, I Yeah, so okay, I'll go back a little bit. The acting in this film, I actually thought outside of Kiefer Sutherland that the rest of the acting was pretty well done.
yeah. I think
The
the strongest acting was from the strangers, like the ones who were
mhm.
like looking for actual John, like the four, I think.
So this is Mr. Hand, the guy who
Mr.
takes
Hand, yeah.
John's memories, right? He's actually the writer of the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and that role was written just for him specifically. Like, so the whole way through, it was this guy was going to be this one doing it, and I thought he did a really good job.
Yeah,
He
I
seemed
thought
pretty psycho,
I think
like
so too.
nihilist psycho.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I have your memories and I like them, but also I don't believe in anything and want to just figure out individuality, so I'm gonna go crazy. Um, yeah, it's hard because Kiefer Sutherland was such a drawback for me. It really hurt so many of the scenes. But like William Hurt, the inspector, he did a good job playing a private detective. Pretty standard role in a film
Yeah,
noir. Jennifer Connelly, she did fine. The issue there was writing for me because should have been more interesting, I think. And then Walensky, he's not a big role in this film. He's the detective who went kind of insane because he one day woke up when he wasn't supposed to. Uh, I think he did a pretty good job, and he had one of my one of the funniest lines. The only time it was funny, and this is funny with a pretty dark sense of humor. The I figured out a way out, and then he jumps in front of a train just immediately
oh yeah,
afterwards. I don't think it was supposed to be funny, but I chuckled a little bit.
because he didn't get tuning, but he knew like something was going on and something was up.
He woke up one night and
Yeah.
saw the doctor going around inserting memories, and then he started talking to everyone. He's like, "Hey, do you remember what like happened yesterday?" And they'd all say a different version of what he knew to be true because I don't know, they didn't change his memories when he woke up that night, and they never again changed his memories.
Just left him stay crazy, and
That's
everyone around him is left to believe he's crazy because everyone else around him is like, we're all part of this, crazy role of getting our minds swapped. We have no other reason to believe you, who's just you sound like a lunatic.
right. But why would the strangers not change his memories? This is the questions I have. Like, what happened where they're just like, yeah, well, he fell off our Excel spreadsheet, so he doesn't exist anymore. He's the
Kind of like
Tuttle
that
of this
person in
movie.
Office Space. He's like Milton.
Yeah,
It
he's
just
not
works.
getting paid, but he's there. So
It just works itself out.
yeah, exactly.
It worked itself out. He did what they wanted him to do, essentially, maybe.
Just I don't know. There's those little pieces where I'm just like, okay, I feel like something's missed here, especially in a movie that the hard part for me, and this is probably a little bit unfair, is when you have such a high concept that has such an interesting potential set of moral ideas or ethical ideas attached to it. I'm I feel like I'm much more particular about these little mistakes that you make because I feel like they hurt your whole entire point. Like, okay, you got this crazy dude who's seen it before, but how come they don't just change his memories to say he hasn't seen it before? Does he reject the memories or does that work? Because I don't even know if that makes sense. Couldn't figure it out. So like when John Murdoch had the memories rejected from him in the beginning in the bathtub scene, was that him physically rejecting the memories, or was that his body evolving to reject the memories? And if you don't know the
Hmm.
answer to that, that's okay because I can't
No, I
remember
don't
either.
know the answer, but uh,
Um.
maybe he just had amnesia. That's what Wikipedia is saying.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. That works. And the whole time, the serial killer that was kind of the red herring to get the private inspector involved, or the detective installed. That was just the strangers killing people, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. I think the strangers would somehow take over their body.
Something like that. They would tune them to do it or something.
Yeah, it almost felt like they mind control them.
um. Okay. One note I
I,
have.
what was up?
Oh, go on, go on. Actually, if you have a point about what we just said, go on first.
No, no, I don't have a point. I just go on to another thing that I think I completely. I
Do it.
might be lost about this, but like, why did that one girl just randomly help Joseph Murdoch when the cop was like trying to harass him in the diner? Was she just did she know?
Oh, no, I guess that's some of that good old human hospitality, you know?
Yeah,
She's like, "Oh, the cops are messing with you. Here, I'll help you with that. Why not? Why not get these cops out of here?"
that felt. There's a lot of stuff that like just feels forced, but I feel like you can get away with it because of like the plot of the story is like people act a certain way because of the memories that they're kind of like forced to live.
Mhm.
So maybe they're just forced to act a certain way when they see certain type of behavior.
Yeah, and I almost feel like as opposed to it making a lot of sense, it's just a setup to get you more emotionally attached to her because she has the daughter that she's taking care of, and then when she dies, you care more about it, and the strangers seem more evil. Um, I think that the strangers killing people is kind of insane. They have so few people on this like Earth planet thing that, and they can replace memories. Why are they killing people?
Right, right, and they're. I'm wondering if they're doing it because, because weren't they trying to decide whether or not like what leads humans to do certain things, and maybe this is why they're trying to figure out if they implant the idea of murder in their head, will they then create murder themselves? Because if
Yeah,
they see,
maybe. And it could also be like a thing where they can now use safety as a reasoning to get people to do things. But I also feel like if you can implant memories, you don't even have to kill the person. You just implant a memory of of someone dying that didn't exist. I mean, maybe I'm crazy, but it's a large concept. I This is the hard part with the concept as large as this is. I think you can take it in a lot of different ways. So, like your suspension of disbelief and kind of watching what you see on the screen is really important because I'm like, there's so many different things they could do if they can just implant memories. Like you don't need to actually kill the person. You just say that some random dude died and then implant that memory in every single person. They're like, "Wow, do you remember Bob? He died. That's so
yeah,
sad."
because wasn't what's his name, Kiefer Sutherland, kind of like doing some like weird vial drops and like, oh, we got a little depression here, we got a little this here.
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
why did you have to like kill them to create that memory? Couldn't you just kind of like for- formulate it? And
That's what I'm saying, and unless they have, like, access to just humans at the go, which comes back to your birthing question even, you're gonna run out of people if you're killing them. What are you doing? I guess we saw the city, there was plenty of people there, but I don't know how, like, long term of a project this is. There's the stranger species is dying out, but at what rate, you know?
yeah,
Um, yeah, so okay, I'll talk so the acting was, I think, pretty solid outside of Kiefer Sutherland. I did enjoy it for the most part. Um we talked about the stories and the concept like just through regular conversation. I don't think I need to hit that specifically. What I do want to talk about is again just the creativity and like the cinematography of this because we talked about it a little bit, but I think it was really interesting kind of just the way they made this because they wanted to avoid giving this a specific time period, so they showed a lot of different things from different time periods. Now this is from the 90s, so it all kind of feels like pre-cell phone. But you had like cars that were from a different time period, just the phones that they were using that were all from different time periods from the appliances in their house. So it kind of gave this idea that the time period was in flux, even though it wasn't. And
Yeah,
I think that helped to add to the confusion of, well, your memories can be whatever they want because they can tell you whatever time it is and you'll be able to just kind of accept it.
exactly.
And I will say, the creativity was off the charts for me. I thought it was really creative, really cool. It did remind me a lot of The Crow. So, but that's actually it's the same director, right? Alex Proyas made that movie. He made this movie. The cities gave off the same vibe to me. They're both like this dark gothic cities. This one had the
Yeah,
shifting in the building, and that was unique. But the rest felt kind of similar. Like it was a little bit like a superhero movie feeling and vibe to it.
the thing that I noticed with the cinematography was just everything was so dark, but like the music didn't really. I didn't really pay attention too much to what was going on with the music, what was going on with the cinematography, because I feel like those tend to go hand in hand. What you're seeing on screen is what you hear sometimes. Like when you're setting
Hmm.
up a scene, you want to like
Hmm.
play music in the background when setting up a scene sometimes. But I felt like I never really got that experience, or at least I never really heard any music being played, much like The Crow, is where everything felt like it could be an industrial music video.
Yeah, yeah. The Crow definitely had a lot more of it. I feel like this had a pretty similar soundtrack to, and this is just, I think, probably on accident, but it felt like it was a similar soundtrack to The Matrix. It wasn't as good as this Matrix soundtrack because that's of course Philip Glass, and he's a phenomenal soundtrack maker. But it had that same feel to me where it was like, oh, very grand sci-fi noises.
Hmm.
That's a terrible way to describe a soundtrack, but I think people will get
There you
it.
go.
um, but yeah, I mean, like it didn't hit on the Crow soundtrack. The Crow was he hit something very specific with the Crow that I don't think many other people could do.
No, and I mean, they tried to recently, and it did not work at
No,
all.
no, no.
I didn't
We
watch
did.
it, but and I don't think
Yeah.
I ever will.
No, that trailer looks so terrible, and the reviews were so terrible. I'm out on it. That's fine. I mean, it looks so bad.
They look really
Um,
bad, and the the acting just was not doing it any favors in the trailer. So I was like, and again, there isn't a reason to remake The Crow, and even The Crow, the old Crow has its flaws, like much like this movie has its flaws.
mhm.
But the thing I like about The Crow is that it has nostalgia for me. Where this one doesn't really have nostalgia, and I can see how I understand why this is such a cult classic for some people like who have that like connection and want that connection with like old style media movies and just like seeing like there's a lot of premise in this film and the for me the cinematography didn't do a whole lot. I can't really speak a whole lot about the cinematography. It just for me it looked always dark and some camera angles were cool, but overall it was just like meh, whatever.
Yeah, I think one thing I will say is that I think that the shot of the inspector William Hurt doing the backflip in space was just phenomenal. I loved that shot so much. There's something about it that works so well for me. I don't know if it was like the movement that you wouldn't expect, or just this movie having all this dark shots. Then he is just dying in a star-filled sky. Where it almost feels like he has broken out of the city. He is dying, but he has broken out. He's the only person who has ever done it. You know, I don't know. It was a phenomenal scene in my opinion. I it was a very dark film. I didn't mind it so much because of the noir style it set, and the pools of light that they did create everywhere. But yeah, it wasn't like perfect, mind you. But I thought it was pretty good overall. The space scene being my easy standout scene.
Yeah, I don't have a standout scene. Nothing really.
Um,
Uh,
we just talked about The Crow. I do have a question for you. Have you ever seen the movie Dark Man?
is that no? I have not.
Okay, so Dark Man is a 1990 superhero movie made by Sam Raimi. That's also a very like dark anti-hero superhero movie.
Okay.
It stars Liam Neeson. Um, just worth watching. I think that those movies aren't exactly the same, but they're pretty darn similar. The Crow and Dark Man. It's like the only other movie that I think can hit kind of the same
Mhm.
tones. And it's got Liam Neeson and Frances McDormand as the two leads. So as you can imagine, it's a pretty wild film. Just a slight little recommendation. If anyone's listening to this and they love The Crow, watch Dark Man if you haven't seen it. Um,
Yeah, it looks interesting. I want to check it out.
yeah. Other than that, I mean, I thought for the most part, a lot of this film was really creative. Again, we talked about the cities changing, the just the idea that anything can be manipulated by your mind. Like even when he makes the doorway appear and the doorway disappears, like that felt
Yeah.
very Matrixy, but this was before the Matrix, so it's not really
Yeah.
fair to attribute it otherwise. I really enjoyed the creativity of this film. I thought I haven't really seen anything that looks like it. Even if I can give comparisons, it's still different enough. The only part that hurt, and it did hurt this film a lot, in my opinion, was the third act. Just when the whole movie derails into an action film,
Yeah.
it really fumbles it. I think that like the final battle between the strangers and John is just like a really intense battle of don't blink, and like you have the terrible tuning effects just hitting each other, and they're floating up in space, and it just went so off the rails
Yeah.
so
There's so much
hard.
going on screen all at once, and it's hard to keep focus.
Everything's blowing up, everything's crumbling. You don't know what's crumbling, you don't know what's blowing up, but everything is. And then the strangers are fighting John, and then they apparently are all just dead, I guess, from my understanding. And now John's in charge. He did the whole I'm the captain now and took over and started changing everything. And act the third act was just kind of a nightmare. All these really good ideas, and they're like, I don't know how to finish this. Let's just turn it into an action movie real quick, okay? Let's kill all the bad guys. That's what we got to do.
I mean, maybe that's his way of ending because he did the Crow, and he's like, I don't know how to end neo
Yeah,
noir films, but I know how to end an action film.
yeah, exactly. He's like, I never did this, man. And also, if you have the voiceover at the beginning who already told you everything, you're like, well, I can't just resolve the mystery. There is no mystery now, so I just have to fight it out, I guess.
Yeah, see some cool shit
Whereas,
happen on screen. Maybe that's what he was hoping for because again, '90s. A lot of the stuff on screen is pretty groundbreaking from what it looks like, and it does seem to have some impact on a few because again, it's a cult classic. But
hmm,
I don't. What about this actually makes it a cult classic? Why is it considered a cult classic?
I think the creativity and just the look of the film alone will get you there. The ideas behind it are strong enough, in my opinion, for it to become a cult classic, even if they don't answer. It at least brings the ideas up in your mind, you know. And again, if you look at like what's happened since this film has come out, there have been good sci-fi movies. Don't get me wrong, but like there just isn't this level of like really high level thinking sci-fi
Sure.
films. So when you're looking for these movies, you're not choosing from a large list. You're like, I want one that's going to challenge me a little bit and just thinking about, in this case, what makes a human if it's not memories. Um, and then also, what would I do if I was abducted onto a spaceship by a bunch of people called the Strangers and they had no hair?
Yeah, they all have no hair and they're all white, pale faced.
All very British looking too, for whatever it's worth. Um, yeah, I think that the pacing could have been a little bit better.
Yeah, I was getting kind of bored. at times.
Kiefer Sutherland, man, he
It all
really
goes
ruined the
back.
pacing for me. Just the constant, let me tell you everything that happened like this because it takes a long time for scientists to
It
talk.
sounds like William Shatner, and when people make fun of William Shatner,
Right?
you
And
know,
just like for what reason? And they made him
but
look so uncool with his like haircut and everything. I don't
yeah,
know. Okay. It's probably not
uh,
fair, but man, that was the least cool Kiefer Sutherland's ever looked, in my opinion.
and to me, it just gives off that like he wasn't told to do this. I feel like Kiefer Sutherland
Mm-hmm.
decided to do this.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm getting from it. I could be completely wrong, but it just really gives me the feeling that Kiefer Sutherland made a an actor's choice,
And he went rogue a little bit, and man, that Alex
or
Proyas
maybe
should have
the
been like,
director
hey bud, reel it in, reel it in, reel it in. But
like.
Kiefer Sutherland was easily the biggest name at this time, I think. I mean, maybe
Of
Jennifer
course,
Connelly, but I'm sure it's Kiefer Sutherland, and he's
no, it's
like, I can
definitely
do
Kiefer
whatever I want
Sutherland. Yeah, I
because
mean,
I don't know
trying to
what
see
came out.
what he was getting, what was the last thing he did before this, and I can't really
His,
see.
I know I'm thinking of movies from the '80s. I'm almost certain. So before this, he
He's done
did
so much. It's crazy. His list of
a lot. He did Freeway, which is a fantastic film. Right before this,
oh, that's
it's
what he did. Freeway.
yeah. And if you haven't seen Freeway, you should watch Freeway. Freeway is a great movie, and he is great in Freeway, but he's a terrible person.
Okay.
Um, it's a great movie though. It really is. Probably one of if you want a reason why Reese Witherspoon is as famous as she became. Legally Blonde, of course, is a good reason, but Freeway is an even better reason.
Oh,
Super
it's
good
a
movie.
comedy crime thriller.
Yeah, and it's good. It's really good.
Oh, dude,
Um,
I'm excited. I want to check this out.
you
I
you
want to check.
should check it out. All right, you really should check it out. It's a fantastic film. I kind of just threw it on one day, just out of
Dude, this shit bombed though. This got a budget of 3 million, made 300 less than 300,000.
trust me though,
It's
well worth the watch. Well worth the watch. I really enjoyed it.
and the
Um,
last thing I'm gonna say about and keep talking about Dark Shade if you have more to say, but the last thing I'm gonna say right now is like on the budget because they barely made their money back at the box office. Budget 27 million, box office 27.2 million. Barely
I was reading about the movies that came out in 1998, and it's a pretty crazy list of films that came out in
around this time.
1998. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
so I wonder if it just came out like head to head with something that just
It
blew
could
it
have.
up.
It came out early in the year though. It didn't even come out during this the summertime, and also it came out in February, which typically has a really bad that's a really bad time, I guess, for movies, right? February.
That's a it can be a good time or it can be a bad time. It just depends. Okay, this isn't super helpful. I was like, I'm gonna look it up. So the highest grossing films of 1998 were Armageddon, Saving Private Ryan, Godzilla. There's Three About Mary, Deep Impact, Mulan, A Bug's Life, Doctor Dolittle, Shakespeare in Love, and Lethal Weapon 4.
In Dark City.
Dark City was not one of the highest grossing films, unfortunately. Patch Adams, it appears, was also on there, but so is it, Dark City definitely doesn't feel like any of those movies. Yeah. Oh, dude. Okay, I have like a list that is the exact release dates, but I'm not going to go over this on air because that would take far too long for me to actually understand. However, it did come out the exact same day as Blues Brothers 2000.
And that's gonna get into your numbers, like because that movie did box office. That was a box office hit for sure.
Sphere, which was another sci-fi film with Dustin Hoffman and Samuel L. Jackson and Sharon Stone. A pretty good movie if you haven't seen it. And The Wedding Singer. So The Wedding Singer is probably what actually made all the money. Um, and then The Big Lebowski came out
Best movie ever.
a week later. So I think there's reasons why this movie didn't do so well. Uh, I hesitate to say it's because the movie was bad. It's just like, a neo noir is probably a pretty hard sell when it comes up to some great comedies, and then another sci-fi movie that's got a bunch of good actors. But going back to Dark City, um, yeah, I got huge Nosferatu vibes from both the city and the strangers.
Yeah, I can see that.
Which, and I mean, like, old Nosferatu, like, it was clear that Alex kind of had to have gotten some sort of inspiration from them because the city was
Sure.
so angular. Everything was very angular, which was I can't remember the name of the German technique they used in films back then to make them seem more scary, but it was in line with that. And then they were flying through the air without moving anything. They were bald. They had long coats, trench coats, and hats, and were bald. I said bald like 3 times during that sentence, so if you don't wonder why I think they look like Nosferatu, I think that's probably it. Um, I think it was a funny choice that at the end, John has, like, this opportunity to kinda save everyone immediately, because he gains all these powers, and he can do apparently whatever the hell he wants with those powers. He can make the sun appear.
He became Neo at this point. He became the
Yeah,
one.
but instead of immediately going to Earth and saving everybody and, like, reuniting them with their homeland, he's just like, "I need a beach day first."
Sometimes you gotta be selfish with that type of stuff, man. The Earth can wait. Today is about me.
Um, this movie has a crazy stat, and it is, the average shot length. So, a neo-noir, you would think, has really long, drawn out shots, right? This has the average length of 1.8 seconds. So, jump cuts galore, and I didn't really feel that in this film for some reason,
No.
but it's one of the shortest of any modern movie, which is crazy. I didn't feel it. I didn't really feel it at all, but I bet you if you go back watching it knowing that, you're gonna feel
Yeah,
it.
dude. I'm kind of watching it alongside what you just said, and I've seen the drops because I'm at this part where he's like hanging out with the old man, his uncle, I think. And
Mhm.
there was so many jumps from like one thing to the other. Like they're showing his face, and then they're showing the stranger's face, and then they're showing on the outside, and then they show him floating away. And it's just like things are happening very fast on screen.
And I think that's, like, to aid the pacing, but I don't know. The pacing still felt a little slow, which is crazy. The,
I think for
I
me, like it was the writing, it was what they were saying, wasn't really interesting
well,
because
I
there's
can't imagine seeing scenes like when he's finding his kid's drawing or his own childhood picture book that he was drawing
yeah
in with crayons, but already knowing the plot of this film. Like, if you have that voiceover in the beginning and you know the plot and you're seeing this, it's not a mystery anymore. I can't like that's the scene is almost a throwaway scene at that point. Whereas when you don't know what's happening, this is another clue to give you an idea of what's happening. So, like, it worked for me, but, like, in your experience, I can't imagine seeing that scene and thinking, "Wow, this is a good scene. This is great. Thank you so much." Because you already know that they're implanting memories. You already know that he's the one and they're messing with him.
yeah. No, I didn't get that. I didn't
Like,
get
because
the thrill of him seeing those those pictures.
it's rough. I don't know. Yeah. Other than that, I think I'm ready for a review,
Okay.
proper review.
Yeah, same.
Um, I'll go ahead and go first. So for story, I'm giving this one a 4. 4 is pretty high, and again, this is more so not necessarily based fully on the writing quality, but more so based on the concept and the ability to swing for something large here. I think too many movies get stuck in the what can we actually accomplish versus what can we actually say. And I think that they missed some points and they could have gone further on some points. There were some plot holes, but I attribute that to this being such a large concept that unless you actually finish every single thing, which you can't do in an hour and 40 minutes, you're gonna have those. So I appreciated it a lot. And I watched the director's cut, and I think the director's cut makes a huge difference because it was a mystery. You didn't know what was happening. When you saw the stars behind the billboard, like you could have had thoughts. Like I had a guess that maybe that could be it. But when you saw the stars, it was an actual twist. It was like, oh shit, they're in space. Like there's no landmass here. Like you could, I was, I was starting to gather that from the way that there was no streets that led out of town, and no one knew how to get to the beach because there's no beach, clearly, right? But your guesses on why could be almost anything, and finding out that it was outer space was pretty cool. The acting, I'm giving a 3. I didn't have issues with anyone, but Kiefer Sutherland's acting was so distracting in this film that it's a 3. Which stinks because I don't think Kiefer Sutherland's a bad actor. I just think he made some silly choices. Creativity is a 5. I can't undersell it on creativity. It was such a cool movie, just in concepts, ideas, thoughts. Even if like there weren't a ton of shots that I can bring up immediately, they just really he really went out there and tried something that I don't see how you could imagine it was possible in your mind in 1998. And he went there out there and he did it. So creativity is a 5. Pacing 3. It wasn't absolutely terrible, but I feel like they could have cut out specific maybe dialogues, parts of dialogues, and it wouldn't have hurt the film. They almost could have cut out the romantic interests if they didn't need it. I mean, they should have done more with it if they were going to keep the romantic interest in there, in my opinion, because it almost didn't matter. I think just devolving into the action movie that it did at the end hurt the pacing because it almost felt like, okay, so we could have just fought this whole time, and I don't really know exactly what he is leading up to besides Kiefer Sutherland injecting himself as everything and all at once in his memories. The sound is a 3. It was okay. It wasn't great. It didn't stick out, and it didn't really hurt the film. So overall, that leaves me at a 7.2, which I'm going to go ahead and round up to 7.5 out of 10.
Yeah, that's a pretty solid score for this movie. I don't think I feel the same way as much as you do, but I think I just watched this very surface level. I would agree with you on the level of creativity in this film is there, and there's still, if someone were to come and make a TV series out of this, I would believe it. I could see this happening because there's room for or belief that there is more than just these strangers. Maybe they were the only of their kind, but maybe there was ones that like slipped away and they are still existing. So there is a reality where there could be a Dark City series or like mini series or just kind of evolving on this concept because it is an interesting concept. Just the idea of like memories being implanted in us and what we do with it and what other species would want to do our with our memories that we and how we interact with them. I don't know. This is a very funky movie and it is kind of heady, but he made it so that it's not too heady to you're not fully like on board and know what's going on. It is kind of shitty that they kind of start the movie off with you already knowing what this guy's all about, and like it kind of leaves out the mystery of what his purpose is. Like, but it didn't distract me too much because again the thing that distracted me the most was Kiefer Sutherland and the slow pacing of the writing. For me personally, I just found it kind of dragging its feet at times. It's kind of one of those movie to end up parts, but there were a lot of cool things on screen, and I there's a lot of things I kind of like forgot to mention or overlooked, but like the whole building being like one of the strangers getting crushed by a building, like that was pretty fucking cool, and just seeing him just like splatter because of this, like that's really neat. Like you don't see that shit often where you see a whole person get crushed by a building. That's so kudos, big points on that. Uh, and yeah, Kiefer Sutherland, I think, is what is either you gotta love it or hate it. And I think for the cult classic film fans of this movie, they love it probably, and they probably get a kick out of every time Kiefer Sutherland's on screen. But as a casual watcher, I don't think it does you any favors trying to enjoy this film. Um, Trying to think what else. I think overall the movie's all right. I don't think I'll rewatch it again. If someone wanted to watch it with me, I'll be down. But it's not a movie I'm looking forward to watching again. So for that, I'm giving this like a 5 out of 10. Good, not great.
I want to rewatch it with you.
You gonna rewatch it?
I don't know. We'll see.
It's on your
I
shelf. It's there if you need it.
exactly.
Did you
I
like the
mean,
DVD inclusions, the added DVD feature?
oh, it was pretty sick. Yeah, that packaging was like really dope. Like Arrow re-released it just very recently at the end of June, and it was sick. Like they did a great job with the packaging, especially now that I've seen the film and I know what it's talking about, or like not what it's talking about, but what is included and why it's included.
Yeah,
Phenomenal.
nice,
Really helps. The Okay, so for the next few episodes, we're gonna have some guest co-hosts. Um, Up next will be Janice. You've seen her before. She'll be back.
nice.
And the next film we're gonna watch is a film called Dirty Rotten Scoundrels by Frank
Ooh,
Oz from 1988. That is starring Steve Martin, Michael Caine, and Glenn Headley.
okay,
Um,
that's a movie I feel like I've heard before, but never watched.
same. I've definitely heard this movie many times, and I've never seen it.
Kind
It's
of
about
reminds
two
me of The
con.
Jerk.
Yeah, and it's about con men. So it's a comedy film by Frank Oz. It should be pretty funny. We will definitely talk about it. I don't know what else to say about it because I haven't seen it yet. But um, yeah, the old Cracker Barrel ain't what it used to be.
Stay tuned.